The biggest currency in a democracy is information. I mean, think about it. Without information, how are we supposed to make decisions? It's kind of like if you're at a job, if you're working at a business, and we're trying to decide, like the episode of The Office, if we're getting a new fax machine or a new chair for all the employees. I mean, if you don't use the fax machine, if you don't use a chair, how are you going to make a decision? Much less if you don't even know that the decisions being going on in the first place. If you don't even know that there's an opportunity to vote for a new fax machine or a new chair. It's kind of like our democracy. If you're not engaged with what's going on, if you don't even know what the argument's about, you're going to have a difficult time picking a side. Especially if you have people with ulterior motives trying to convince you one way or another in ways that you might not even realize, consciously or subconsciously. It's because of this that we look at popular positions. Medicare for all, public colleges, tuition-free public colleges, ending, all these wars that are wasting our money trying to extract resources from other countries, resources we'll never see, the resources the military-industrial complex and large corporations will see, as opposed to domestic spending. All of these policies are popular, and yet if you go down the list of almost every single politician's platform, you won't see any of these, bearing a few that could buck, the establishment and corporate greed. So why is it that we continue to have these policies intact that are unpopular while neglecting these overwhelmingly popular policies? And in a democracy, where are we getting our information? Who is informing the general populace? Well, in 1984, 50 companies owned the majority of media interests in the United States. But as of now, 90% of all United States media is funneled through four large conglomerates. 90% of all the information you see on television is funneled through four major conglomerates. That's Comcast, Disney, CBS, and AT&T. Four major conglomerates. And this includes everything from Fox News to CNN to MSNBC to ABC. I mean, literally every channel, for the most part, falls under this umbrella of four conglomerates. And it's important to remember, the purpose of these conglomerates is to generate profits for their stockholders. It's not to inform the populace. And I want to repeat this for emphasis because it's easy to get this confused. It's easy to look at them as some objective arbiters of the truth. That's not the case. These are companies like McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Nike. Their goal is to sell their product. Their goal in this case, it's to generate eyeballs for their advertisers. So it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that, when you see something from CBS or ABC or Fox News, that they're creating a story for the sake of journalistic integrity. I mean, they have great workers. Don't get it wrong. They have great journalists and workers that work for these companies. But the fundamental goal of the ship, regardless of how it's being steered, is to generate profits for their stockholders. So don't fall into the illusion that they're there solely to, for the sake of democracy. They have exterior motives, and the motives aren't always wholesome as they may seem. Okay, so knowing what we know, what are the ways that these media conglomerates, these companies, maximize their influence and maximize their profits? So I'm gonna break down two ways of what they do to dictate the conversation, how they are impacting democracy. And the first way is it's not as impactful and not as malicious, but it is it hurts us because it numbs our brains, and it takes up a lot of time in place of real issues, and that's sensationalized. So, as I said before, the main goal of these conglomerates is to generate profit, is to generate ad revenue, and the best way to do that is with a gripping narrative. What they'll do is they'll create a story, an arc that, kind of involves the public. So think about the Trump Russia that whole Trump Russia phenomenon. Now, we could talk about other reasons why that was a story. Namely, it allowed the Democrats to virtue signal without actually having to stand for something with the working class. But the majority of, and don't worry, I dish it out on both equally corrupt, terrible parties. So don't think I'm on a team, so to speak. I don't believe in teams. I believe in progress. When I talk about sensationalism with the Trump Russia story, if you pay attention to politics every day, if you consume politics and that's your life, maybe you were really engaged in the Trump Russia story. You were watching Rachel Maddow break down the little nuances of what was going on. But if you're not, you're just seeing these grandiose headlines. Oh, James Comey makes breaking a bombshell book, and this comes out, and that comes out. And new tonight, breaking news: Trump had links with Russia. He had a Russian drink and had his honeymoon. It was used as a vehicle to create sensationalism, and they would put the dramatic music and Trump's face looking down, talking about, like, is this the end of the Trump administration? While largely ignoring the fact that he just gave a $2 trillion tax breaks to the same people he said he was going to fight, these corporate donors and the funding donor class that he said he was going to fight against and aid the working class. No. Or the fact that his Obamacare replacement was literally, which I doubt he read, was literally Obamacare minus trillions in funding. Literally, it wasn't even a replacement. It was like, yes, I like Obamacare, but it's Obama's name. I don't like it. I don't like Obama's name. Cut. That's all he did. He just literally took Obamacare, slashed the funding, took away regulations, and added profit for those same donors. But that's not what they would talk about. If the Democrats actually cared about the working class, that's what they would be pointing towards, instead of virtue signaling and ripping up Trump's speech. But no, this Trump Russia thing became a sensationalized story for the public to kind of jiggle their keys, for the media to jiggle their keys at the public, to be like, ooh, look over here, look, breaking news with a headline. This guy indicted on malicious charges, Russian agency, Vladimir Putin, and the late night shows would kind of get onto it. But at the end of the day, that ended up being nothing, and it didn't affect the average person. The average person could care less about Trump Russia, even if it were true, if Trump was benefiting them on their daily lives. They weren't, he wasn't, but the point is, the media is constructing these narratives in order to sensationalize while neglecting the real issues that are going on at hand. Another thing that they do to sensationalize is hot button issues. They speak in broad strokes about things like gun control and abortion. And I'm not minimizing the impact of both of those things. They're incredibly important topics. But in terms of the percentage of people that it affects on a day-to-day basis, it's minimal compared to huge systematic issues like corruption, public financing, debt, regulating credit card debt. I mean, these things are much more important, these economic issues, but they check out for the sake of sensationalized hot button issues. And so it gives it allows these media conglomerates to do two things at once, which I've kind of said before, but I'm going to restate it in a more succinct way. It allows them to do two things at once. It allows them to create a sensationalized headline and fill up time, because with 24 news hour coverage, you need something to fill up time. And it allows them to distract or to neglect the real issues at hand. The real issues that aren't always sexy. They may not be, they may not generate somebody that cares less about politics, cares less about anything, and just wants to see stuff go down, wants to see impassioned fights and people yelling at each other. If you want that, you could watch the WWE or football. Go Panthers. I mean, but this is much more important, and political theater is often used as a tool to generate eyeballs, while really missing the point of politics in the first place. So that's the first thing they do with all of their influence. And it's incredibly it's destructive in terms of the lack of discourse it perpetuates, but it is not nearly as bad as the second thing that the media does with their influence. The second thing that these media conglomerates do, with all their influence that they yield, is much more malicious, much more impactful, and a much bigger detriment to society. Oh, much bigger detriment to democracy, and it's probably one of the biggest reasons why the United States is so far behind the rest of the other industrialized world when it comes to so many basic issues of, wealth inequity, corruption, voter turnout. It literally affects everything. It affects everything. And that's skewing the narrative. And honestly, I see that I'm already at about 8-9 minutes, and I don't think I can do this topic justice without delving into another video of how this impacts our democracy. So I'm gonna leave that. I think this will be good for today. I'm gonna leave that for another video. If you like what you just saw, if you want to hear me do more, if you want to give me the motivation to keep them churning every day, every other day, once a week, whatever you guys are looking for, then like it, subscribe, share it, just put it out there. Come on, I don't want to produce content and feel like I'm yelling out into the oblivion. I want to know if there's an audience for this. So if you like this, be sure, please share it. Let it out there. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me I'm an idiot and that you completely disagree with me. Just get a discussion going. I want to be able to have a discussion, generate a discussion, be able to talk about any kind of topics. I can do current events. I can do bigger picture stuff like this series I'm doing now. But I really just want to get the audience involved. I want to get a conversation going, and I want to be able to have an impact on somebody. And so if you like this, like it, subscribe, share it, do anything. Tell me anything you want to hear from next. And yeah, this has been John Felipe. Until next time.